Good morning, everyone. This is breaking right now. Police say that as many as 20 people are dead. 20 people dead and at least 42 people taken to various hospitals in the Orlando, Florida area. Police say a gunman opened fire at the Pulse nightclub around 2 a.m. Eastern, exchanging fire with officers at the club.
The melee began outside at the front door. The shooter went back into the nightclub and began taking hostages. SWAT teams 3 hours later stormed in to try and rescue the hostages. Gunfire was exchanged, and the suspect was killed by police.
Police say he was armed with an assault rifle, or potentially an assault rifle, handgun, and some kind of a device, potentially explosive device. One person who knew someone inside describes the shock of the scene.
I had been here for about an hour or so when the ground just rocked and we heard a very loud explosion and people just lost it.
Well, this is video of survivors trying to find safety earlier while many of them were covered in blood. Police say they believe there is no more threat to that area and they are investigating this as an act of terrorism.
Police just...
This is the first time we're seeing these images, a horrific scene.
We have a phone interview we want to go to now. Paul Viollis joins us now. He's the CEO of the Viollis Group and a former supervisor of Manhattan's DA office criminal court unit. Thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure, Anna.
When you hear these numbers, I mean, they're startling. 20 possible dead inside, 42 people taken to the hospital, 9 officers involved, 1 officer being injured and saved by a Kevlar helmet. What is going through your mind as far as the size and scope of this when you hear that the shooter may have had leanings toward radical Islamic ideologies?
First thing, Anna, is that this guy is extremely well prepared. This has been going on for a long time. This is not a spontaneous event. What you're going to find right now is the facts-finding process is already underway. I think the important thing to note is the collaboration in law enforcement between the Orlando Police Department, the FBI, FDLE, and probably ATF. Is really superior. I mean, they really have top-shelf people that are working this. But what you're going to see, and we've seen this before, is they're going to go after his cell phone first. They're going to start gathering intel about him, who he's communicated with, how long he's been communicating about this. They're going to look at everyone that's potentially connected directly and collaterally. They'll go after his laptop, and then we'll start the interviews.
Right.
Interviews people connected with the shooter, eyewitnesses, CCTV information that they'll pick up from the scene in the collateral area, as well as a search of his vehicle. So right now, that's what law enforcement's going to converge on as far as identifying the pedigree of this particular individual and where his motive really was.
So law enforcement was just asked at this press conference, Paul, whether this guy had ties to Islamic terror, and they suggested he did. Is that something they would casually speculate about, or would they have to know that to say it?
Frankly, I'm surprised they said that because they're going to keep that really, really close to the chest, and they have to. They've got to be extraordinarily judicious when it comes to mentioning the word international terrorism or Islamic terrorism. I mean, fact be told, let's not rule it out. This could clearly be that because it's a prime soft target. It makes a big statement. It has a big splash. Orlando's a big market. So it's not that it can't be ruled out. That being said, though, going back to Anna's first question, when you look at the totality of the event, the motives behind this could be several. It could be Islamic terrorism, but also, it could be a hate crime. It could be domestic violence. It could be an act of domestic terrorism. So, again, once we peel back the onion, you're going to get more of that.
Paul, you said you're surprised that they would make the FBI, in answer to a question from our own Peter Ducey, said that the shooter may have had leanings toward that ideology, radical Islamic terrorism. You say you're surprised that they answered that. But the answer in and of itself, even if reluctant, may be revealing. If they were to say may have leanings, that wouldn't be based on speculation. That would be based on some sort of evidence. What sort of evidence could they be basing that on? Or would you even speculate that they would just speculate on it baselessly?
No. I mean, we're talking about the Bureau. I mean, seriously, coming back to the initial point, you really do have an all-star cast of law enforcement at this point. And for someone from the Bureau to make that statement, clearly they have information on the shooter, and with respect to not just his pedigree, where he's from, and they're running him immediately. Any information, they've got a great intelligence resources and databases. So for that comment to be made, they definitely have some type of information that led them to that point. There's no question about that.
And what other types of things could that be that you would potentially find on the gunman?
Well, with respect to the pedigree of the gunman, the shooter?
Well, I mean, would he have been carrying a Quran, an Islamic flag?
Okay.
You know, what types of evidence would lead them to say that there was a chance of that?
Well, first it could be they may have made statements inside the nightclub, which they haven't said while he was creating that shooting. We saw that in Paris, we saw it in Brussels, we've seen it in a number of different places. So that could have been made that brought them there. It could be where he's from. Is he a naturalized citizen? Where it could be from Syria. Who knows? They don't, but they know. So when they're examining him, it could be the weapons of choice that he used. They haven't divulged it yet, nor should they. But in answer to your question, these are some of the things that they have already in place that probably led them to the point to say this could be an act of international terrorism.
So they said that they don't know who this guy is. They don't know his identity, whether he's a U.S. citizen or not. How would they go about finding out who he is?
Well, again, the collaboration of federal law enforcement is really impeccable in our country. Most people don't understand that. Instantaneously, they will have information coming from ICE, Customs, as well as the FBI, CIA, and other related military intelligence units on this particular individual. If there was ever any information on this particular person, vis-a-vis naturalized, not naturalized citizen, travel in and out of the country, they're going to know that really quickly.
Paul, there was a brave hostage rescue, we're told, in this press conference. Many officers storming this nightclub to save upwards of 30 innocent civilians surrounded presumably by bodies of the dead who had already been killed by this shooter. Would the decision to move on something like that, could it partly be premised on the fact that they had learned at that point that whoever's inside there had larger intentions, or it was an act of terrorism as opposed to a random shooting? Does a potential link, meaning potential leanings toward that ideology, could that hasten the decision to go in on a hostage rescue?
There's absolutely no question about that. I mean, tactically speaking, the on-scene commander, the supervisor, is going to make that call based on the information at hand. And if they feel that, a tactical entry is imminent at that point, then that's where they're going to go. I mean, you really have to give these guys credit, honest to God. The men and women that are on that team, sort of like firefighters, these are people that are running into danger. Pete, you know that firsthand. These are people that are running into danger when everybody's running out. So they made that decision based on the intel at hand at that time.
Amen.
And do you think that what they've done was protocol? I mean, that's the way that it should have gone down?
And the only way I could describe that is textbook. And having worked with these agencies in the past, you rest assured, and anybody watching this, rest assured that this investigation will proceed expeditiously and judiciously, but it's going to proceed as a textbook investigation.
All right. Paul Viollis, thanks a lot for joining us, Paul.
Always a pleasure.